15-year-old art student Leo Vance, who was known for his keen eye and proficiency with a camera, vanished without a trace from the Redwood Canyon Trail, a remote area outside Port Hope, Oregon, during a cool, overcast afternoon in the autumn of 2012. The immediate response from local law enforcement was, "What we do know," was fundamentally flawed and slow to mobilize, a pattern that would sadly define the entire case for years to come, contributing significantly to the fact that Leo is still missing today. The initial report was filed by his heartbroken mother, Eleanor Vance, after Leo failed to return from a planned nature photography outing, an activity he had undertaken dozens of times before, always returning precisely when he said he would. Precious hours were wasted, critical time in a dense forest environment where scent trails and tracks dissipate quickly, and the official stance was initially dismissive. The police initially treated it like a runaway case, a common and deeply frustrating reaction in missing persons investigations involving teenagers, especially when no immediate signs of a struggle are present. Eleanor, a woman who knew her son's careful, meticulous nature, immediately countered this theory with fierce certainty, insisting that Leo was simply not a runaway and that he had been abducted by an unknown party. The first 72 hours, the most vital window for recovery, passed with an agonizing sluggishness, marked by bureaucratic delays and a clear lack of urgency from the small local force, who allegedly told the family not to worry, a suggestion that still haunts them. The family says they were dismissed outright, their detailed knowledge of Leo's habits and the trail itself undervalued in favor of a simpler, less complicated narrative that required minimal resources, a truth that makes the failure of the institution all the more stark and frustrating. The search that eventually materialized, after intense pressure from the Vance family and their growing network of friends and volunteers, was extensive in theory, but tragically uncoordinated in practice, failing to yield any concrete evidence. Search teams, often consisting of more worried neighbors than trained professionals, combed the dense temperate rainforest for weeks, looking over and over and over for a dropped lens cap, a discarded energy bar wrapper, or any indicator of forced passage, but the wilderness yielded nothing. The official K-9 units, according to the official reports, lost Leo's scent less than a quarter mile from where his bicycle was discovered neatly chained to the trailhead sign, a detail the family believes proves conclusively he was not a runaway, but was taken shortly after his arrival at the site. This lack of a traceable path, the complete vanishing act in a highly trafficked area, immediately suggested something far more sinister than a simple accident, solidifying the heartbroken mother's worst fear. Leo was abducted. The sad, strange disappearance of Leo Vance began to spiral into confusion, contradiction, and things that don't add up almost immediately after the official search was scaled back and then halted, leaving the family's nightmare to continue indefinitely. There were strange, unconfirmed sightings in the small towns along the coastal highway in the weeks following, but each supposed lead proved to be a dead end, a case of mistaken identity, or a complete fabrication from well-meaning but unreliable witnesses, leaving investigators to return again and again to the same empty trailhead. The fact remains that in a small, tight-knit community like Port Hope, where everyone knew everyone, and the trail was a local fixture, no one reported seeing anything unusual on that crucial autumn afternoon, a silence that many believe speaks volumes about the nature of the crime. The absence of physical evidence and the baffling lack of witnesses led to a painful and prolonged impasse, transitioning the case from an active search to a cold file within 6 months, much to the anguish of Eleanor Vance, who refused to accept the finality of the decision. Some will call that incompetence, a simple lack of training and resources within a small-town police department unable to handle a high-profile case. Others call it something darker, suggesting that the initial slow walking of the investigation was a deliberate effort to protect unknown parties or obscure a terrible truth, an allegation that has festered in the community for years and contributed to the widespread belief that this case has been unjustly swept aside. What remains unclear as whether the failure was due to simple human error or a more complex, intentional breakdown of justice. The neighborhood was never the same after Leo went missing. The casual innocence of the quiet, forested community replaced by an insidious, perpetual suspicion, with neighbors suddenly looking at each other sideways and parents no longer allowing their children to roam freely. A palpable fear. It became the new normal. The initial detective assigned to the case, Detective Marcus Silas, allegedly felt the pressure of the community and the family, expressing his own deep frustration with the lack of resources and the early institutional negligence that he believed had doomed the investigation from the start. A feeling of inadequacy that eventually led to his request to be taken off the file, unable to cope with the family's pain. The persistent question remains, burning at the heart of the case. How can a young man with no known enemies, no troubled past, and no history of mental distress simply vanish so completely without even a footprint to follow? Curiously, as the years passed without resolution and the case faded from the national headlines, claims emerged tying this case to trafficking networks that allegedly operated quietly in the remote areas of the Pacific Northwest, preying on vulnerable or transient individuals near major highways and forested routes. These claims, sourced mainly from anonymous tips and online speculation, suggested that Leo's disappearance was not random, but targeted, the work of an organized group with the means to take someone and move them quickly and silently through the labyrinthine logging roads and back channels of the region. Law enforcement officially discounted these theories, stating that there was no concrete evidence of a connection, yet the persistent nature of the rumors only deepened the sense of unease and the feeling that the official narrative was incomplete, an obvious effort to avoid a deeply complex reality. The sheer volume of tips, both legitimate and baseless, caused the investigation to again and again become bogged down in minutiae and red herrings, siphoning precious time and energy from the few remaining officers dedicated to the cold case file. A grueling process that wore down everyone involved. Eleanor, the heartbroken mother, continued to collect every piece of information herself, no matter how outlandish, meticulously logging details and cross-referencing names and locations in a desperate attempt to find the pattern that the police had either missed or chosen to ignore, refusing to let her son fade into the statistical abyss of the permanently missing. The official review of the case, conducted in 2017, 5 years after Leo was abducted, concluded that the most likely scenario was still foul play on the trail, but offered no new suspects or new lines of inquiry, maintaining a frustrating, neutral stance. Many believe there's a cover-up that reaches into high places, a pervasive local myth that suggests the person responsible for Leo's disappearance is someone with influence, someone who could leverage the small town's dependency on federal and state funds to ensure a lackluster investigation and a quiet resolution, protecting them from true scrutiny. The lack of cooperation from certain local entities, including a prominent logging company and a small, private retreat located near the trail, allegedly raised immediate red flags for independent investigators hired by the Vance family. Yet the official channels never pursued these avenues with the required vigor. It is a terrifying prospect, the idea that a community can conspire, even passively, to allow a child to remain missing, simply because confronting the truth is deemed too costly or too dangerous for the local power structure. An unsettling thought that fuels the public's skepticism. Unbelievably, despite the mountains of circumstantial evidence and the persistent local rumors of powerful people being involved, the case file shows almost no paper trail connecting Leo Vance's disappearance to any named high-profile suspects or any concrete institutional corruption, leaving the allegations in the uncomfortable space of hearsay and speculation. Detective Silas, before he left the force, did allegedly note his extreme difficulty in obtaining necessary search warrants and accessing certain private properties adjacent to the trail. But his written complaints never named a specific person of interest, preserving the official record as one of procedural frustration rather than intentional sabotage. This deliberate or accidental vagueness means that the crucial question of whether the failure to find Leo was incompetence or a cover-up remains permanently ambiguous, continuing to undermine the family's faith in the system they are forced to rely on. Eleanor Vance, the heartbroken mother, refused to let her son fade into the background, turning grief into activism and becoming a tireless advocate not only for Leo, but for all missing persons in the state, establishing a foundation that helps other families navigate the labyrinthine indifference of law enforcement. Her constant public presence, her interviews, and her unflinching refusal to accept defeat ensured that the case was never truly closed, forcing local media and authorities to confront the family's nightmare again and again, even when they wished the story would simply go away and cease demanding answers. She travels the state giving talks, speaking on the need for better training, faster response times, and the absolute necessity of treating every missing child case, regardless of the initial assessment, as a critical emergency, a vital moral lesson learned from her own devastating experience. She maintains a digital billboard with Leo's face on it, visible from the main interstate that runs through Port Hope, a constant, silent reminder to everyone passing through the area that he is still out there somewhere, a powerful, visual promise that she will never stop searching. Eleanor's dedication has inadvertently shone a critical light on dozens of other cold cases in the region, providing resources and public attention to families who, like her, were dismissed early on by police who initially treated it like a runaway case or simple wanderings, proving that her refusal to be silent has had a profound, wide-reaching effect on how the state handles its vulnerable missing population. She is the living embodiment of the fact that the fight for justice is often waged not in courtrooms, but in the relentless, exhausting, daily effort of one determined, grieving parent. She has personally re-walked the perimeter of the Redwood Canyon Trail dozens of times, meticulously searching the area over and over, sometimes alone, sometimes with a small team of loyal, private citizens, always driven by the hope that she will spot something everyone else missed. This heartbreaking ritual of return, this desperate, personal search, underscores the reality that for a family facing the tragedy of a missing child, there is no such thing as peace, only the momentary relief of having exhausted every possible avenue, knowing that tomorrow the search will begin again. She keeps a detailed log of every piece of potential evidence, every strange occurrence, every unsubstantiated rumor, believing deeply that the answer to Leo being abducted is hidden somewhere within the noise, waiting for the right person to see the pattern. Imagine waiting 10 years, the time that has passed since Leo's disappearance, and then someone knocks on your door at midnight, claiming to have seen your son 2 states away, only for the tip to be another cruel false alarm that forces the heartbroken mother to relive the initial trauma. The emotional toll of this cyclical hope and crushing disappointment is unimaginable. Yet Eleanor endures, driven by the knowledge that she is Leo's only reliable voice in a world that is so quick to forget those who are missing. A terrifying demonstration of parental love mixed with a desperate, singular focus. She made a promise to her son the day he was born, and she will not let the failure of the justice system allow her to break that sacred bond, ensuring his face and his story remain prominent in the public consciousness. Perhaps most troubling, the most recent police review of the original 911 logs and dispatch records from 2012, long after Detective Silas had left the force, revealed significant gaps in the reporting and recording process, with key calls allegedly not logged until hours after they were received, further cementing the family's suspicion of institutional malfeasance. This discovery, made only in 2021 by a new cold case detective who inherited the file, suggests a level of negligence that goes beyond mere incompetence, indicating a systemic failure to follow established protocol that directly impacted the ability to mount a timely and effective search operation when precious hours were wasted. The question that hangs in the air is whether these procedural errors were the product of a simple, understaffed department or a clear attempt to keep the investigation contained, preventing the media spotlight from exposing the deeper, darker connections to trafficking claims. These fragments build a picture that never quite completes, a jigsaw puzzle with the crucial centerpiece perpetually missing, leaving investigators with only the edges and corners to work with, forcing them to rely on conjecture where hard evidence should be. We have the bicycle, neatly locked, which strongly suggests Leo was not a runaway. The complete absence of a struggle, which suggests he was incapacitated or taken by surprise. And the persistent local whispers of individuals who allegedly operate outside the law with impunity, all pointing to the disturbing conclusion that he was abducted. What we do know is that a 15-year-old boy, proficient in outdoor survival, did not simply walk off the path and die of exposure. What remains unclear is who took him and why the official mechanisms of the state failed so spectacularly to find him. The new cold case detective, a young woman named Clara Reyes, has spent the last 2 years poring over the case file again and again, seeking to untangle the knotted mess of the initial investigation, determined to find the truth behind the allegations that the case was covered up. She has re-interviewed dozens of witnesses and even attempted to track the movement of vehicles along the logging roads on the day Leo went missing, relying on old, grainy security footage from local businesses that were previously dismissed as irrelevant, all in a relentless attempt to prove that the initial assessment was tragically, perhaps criminally, negligent. Detective Reyes has privately expressed her belief that Leo Vance was abducted by a highly organized, non-random predator, but the lack of verifiable evidence means she is still unable to move the case forward in any meaningful way, facing the same walls of silence and uncertainty as her predecessor. The constant, low-level fear that permeates the Port Hope area is the invisible legacy of Leo Vance's disappearance, a psychological scar left on the community by the reality that the perpetrator is still out there, possibly a local, possibly a transient, but certainly someone who got away with taking a child and leaving the heartbroken mother with an empty chair. The failure to find Leo has taught the community a hard lesson, that when faced with the terrifying prospect of a child being abducted, the only true advocates are the family and a small network of dedicated volunteers, because the official response often buckles under pressure or falls prey to its own internal biases, treating the victim as suspect and the family as an impediment. The trauma is not just Leo's, but the entire town's, forever grappling with the violation of their small, quiet world. As of the last official update, the case remains an open, active missing persons investigation, a promise made by Detective Reyes to Eleanor Vance that she will continue the work, despite the long odds, and that Leo will not be forgotten or dismissed as just another cold statistic. Eleanor, in turn, continues her relentless activism, fighting for legislative changes that would mandate faster, more aggressive responses in all suspected child abduction cases, using her personal tragedy as the fuel for systemic change, refusing to let the government off the hook for their initial fatal error. The truth of Leo Vance's final moments, the terrifying reality of who took him and where he is being kept, is still locked away somewhere in the vast, indifferent wilderness or the dark corners of the trafficking networks, leaving the heartbroken mother with nothing but her unwavering will and an unbreakable promise. The sad, strange disappearance of Leo Vance serves as a chilling, cautionary tale about the failures of a system built on presumption rather than immediate action, and the terrifying efficiency of those who prey on the vulnerable in remote, seemingly peaceful corners of the country, proving that the threat of being abducted is far more present than most people care to admit. The community waits, Eleanor waits, and a small cadre of dedicated individuals continue the search again and again. But the years tick by, turning a fresh face into a historical photograph, a heartbreaking reminder that sometimes, despite all the effort, the forest simply refuses to give up its secrets. The case of Leo Vance is a painful testament to the long shadow cast by an unsolved crime and the unyielding strength required to fight against a world that is always trying to forget the people who are missing.